Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Coleen Greco. Joy isn't just her calling, it's her middle name. Well, it's Joyce, but just roll with it. Coleen is a compassionate, empathetic, and boldly authentic human being, but she wasn't always that way. Like many, she has been plagued with self defeating thoughts, some of which she's carried for over 4 decades. Can anyone relate? Through her own journey of self discovery, spiritual exploration, and personal crisis, she has managed to transform her life into the most unimaginable source of joy. Today, Coleen is a joyologist. She provides mindset and nutrition, coaching, as well as personal training to people who feel stuck and want to reclaim joy in their lives. As a motivational speaker, she works with individuals and corporations around the globe, teaching folks how to reclaim their joy using the SNAP method. Today, we talked about what inspired Coleen to become a joyologist and what that means. We talked about reclaiming joy in our lives and what to do if we feel stuck or we're struggling with depression, anxiety, situational depression, how to make self-care more part of our routine and regular part, what to do for clients that struggle feeling not enough, they're feeling a lack of self-esteem or a lack of self-love, the importance of self-care, especially if you're feeling stuck and overwhelmed in your life, why that can turn everything around, and specific challenges that working moms face, misconceptions around nutrition, mindset, and personal training. And last but not least, we talked about the SNAP method to snap you out of the rut you're in. So it was so good today. I hope you guys really enjoy this. Coleen is a delight. Without further ado, let's dive into this episode with Coleen Greco. I'm excited to welcome Coleen Greco to the Sisterhood of Sweat.
Thank you so much for having me, Linda. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Me too. We were already having a lot of fun before we got started. Sometimes you think you should already push record to capture some of the fun moments in pre-conversations. But we were talking that we both watched J-Lo's movie yesterday. We might have watched it at the same time, The Mother. And tell me what you were saying before. You're going to be a badass like J-Lo?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I'm going to be like, a sniper, like mixed martial arts badass. Yes. In my next
I
life
mean,
for
oh
sure.
my God, she looked so freaking amazing. She's
Incredible.
so fit, so fit. I love
Yeah.
fit. I love fit. Okay. And then beautiful.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Yes. Beautiful in anything. Yes. I'm like, oh
You
my
just-
gosh, she has on my favorite. I mean, actually, I almost wore it for the show.
oh yeah.
I
Well,
like my SOS with the barbell, Sisterhood of Sweat on my head. Like I catch me 99% of the time if I'm working out with that. And she had one on with her shades and her tank top. And I am like, oh my gosh, she looks amazing in just like in that.
in anything. I couldn't believe it. No. And then I thought to myself, like in her stormtrooper camo look, I would have been like, does this make me look a little puffy? She like rocked it. She rocked everything she
She
had.
rocked her hoodie.
She rocked her hoodie.
And at the beginning, like we were talking, I was just kind of like, I wasn't connecting the dots, but granted, I was doing cardio. But
No,
then it really started getting good, and she turned into a badass. They moved forward about like 12 years. The daughter was gorgeous too.
she was. It wasn't your cardio. It was, I think the idea was to kind of like lay the groundwork and then really focus on 12 years later. but I was like, wait a second, who, like the one guy did the arms and the other guy did something else, and I didn't catch what he did. So then she put the two things together, and I kind of missed like what her business became and how she kind of screwed them over.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So I just kind of missed that. I was like, I want to know more about the deception.
I wanted to know more about that part of it,
Yeah.
but obviously it was enough to make them really go after her. Oh
Can
my
you
God.
can you imagine having to spend 12 years tracking somebody down and they were like right under her nose the whole time? That little girl
Oh,
was in
right.
Ohio or something.
I think things like that happen all the time, though, like where people are missing or, you know, people find someone that maybe they were adopted and they find a parent and
Do you think
just,
somebody's looking for us?
well, according to LinkedIn, I had 26 searches last week. I'm like, that's like clickbait because you want to know, well, who was searching for me?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, I really did enjoy the movie. I confer with you that J Lo is an absolute badass, a beautiful one at that. And I did really enjoy the movie, and I tried really hard not to give anything too much away,
I don't think you gave anything away. I
so you
almost,
guys can
I was
go
going to say,
enjoy it.
there were a couple of moments I lost my breath, but I'm not going to say what they are because I think that would give things away. But yes, please go watch it. It's great. Just give a little grace for the first, what, 10, 15 minutes,
Yeah,
whatever
I
it is.
think you got to give it grace for the first 10
Yeah,
or 15 minutes. Then it really cooks with
it
gas.
picks
Like
up.
then it picked up. Really enjoyed it. It got me through my cardio, which I just went to France and I had to pay penance because I'm like, oh my gosh, I am doing a fitness competition in 3 weeks after going for a 10-day tour to France and Italy and Monaco. I am like, I have to get on hook myself to this treadmill.
I love it. Well, I am sure you'll do well, but I will make sure to follow up too.
Oh
From
my
my
gosh.
couch, I'm, eating my protein.
Hey, I mean, I am having a great time. I wouldn't have missed going to support my son at Con with his movie Riddle of Fire for the world. It was like a dream from start to finish. And I also wouldn't want to miss uh, speaking next week in New York City at the Triad Theater for anything. So I'm just living life full out at 60.
Balance, babe. It's all about balance.
And so you are the joyologist. I love that term.
Thank you.
Explain to me, what does that mean and why do you call yourself that?
So I would say 4 years ago I started coaching. And I can get into why, but when I was trying to explain how I was different, I was like, there's got to be some sort of umbrella term that pulls these pieces together. And I just kept coming back to joy. Everything was anchored in joy. And I was like, I'm like a joyologist. And I thought I made that term up. It turns out it is trademarked somewhere, which I'm gonna fight. But but yeah, it was just something I came up with because again, everything I do, every conversation I have is rooted in joy. About 5 years ago, our family suffered a trauma here in the house. Um, and it was sort of the thing that took the oxygen out of my body. And I did a lot of self-reflecting, and eating and drinking a lot, to the point where I had put on enough weight that these are weights I hadn't seen since my pregnancies. Um, and so you can imagine having children, what that's like. And it
Mm-hmm.
was
Sure.
rather traumatic. And I decided that in order to be strong for him, I've got to work on myself. My son is the one that was having trouble, and so I did the work on myself to try to make my world extremely small. I realized I had a ton of acquaintances, and loosely friendships and things that didn't matter to me. And it was this experience that really showed me the things that mattered and where my time needed to be spent. And so I started on this journey to lose the weight. I lost 52 pounds. I've kept it off for, yeah, high five.
High five from
Kept it
afar.
off for over 4 years. And like many people, I thought I had a weight loss or a weight problem my whole life. I didn't at all. I had, a cute little belly pooch that most people would kill to have. But it wasn't until this experience that I realized, like, there is a problem here. And so during my journey, I was working with a nutrition coach, and I had said to him, don't you want to know what caused me to gain the weight so that I can never go back there again? Can't we develop some strategies to help me keep the weight off? And he said, I'm not your therapist. And I thought, that's not right. No, there's a difference between being a licensed mental health counselor and giving me zero support. There's like a huge spectrum there that, means there's opportunity to, support people. And so I said, I think I can do this better. And I got all of my certifications, did all the training that I needed to do, and became a nutrition coach, and have been helping people, hundreds of people now, lose, I don't know, well over 1,000 pounds collectively, and keep it off. And it's really through the development of the SNAP method that enables them to do that.
So you mentioned helping people who feel stuck reclaim the joy in their life. What is your approach for people who are struggling with situational depression or anxiety?
Yeah. So, a lot of people work on self-soothing or self-medicating with food or with alcohol, or for some people it's gambling, some people it's shopping, but a lot of people it's food. They run to the pantry. They want that quick fix. They want that soothing feeling. And when you have situational depression or anxiety, there is a trigger that causes that flare up, right? Where you start to, decline and withdraw and what have you. What I recommend, and this is cornerstone to the SNAP method, is journaling. And it sounds a little hokey, right? But it's not. The power of the pen is irrefutable. When you start to record what you believe to be the truth, so what you think is going on in the moment, the pen will get you to the truth. So you start writing, and it's littered with facts, and then there's some I would say some analysis that goes on, and there is probably some lies filtered in there too. But eventually the pen gets you to the truth. And with that, you can start to decide what you want to do with those triggers. So with the SNAP method, it's, the first step is to stop. So you don't react, you don't run to the pantry, you don't talk, you don't text, you don't type, nothing. You just kind of like let the trigger come. And N stands for notice, which is, am I breaking out into a sweat? Can I breathe? Do I have tightness of chest? What's going on around me? What is it that the person said or did that caused me to feel triggered? And that's when you start to journal, and you just write. It's like you're reporting the news. You just write what you believe to be the situation.
Right.
A stands for accept. So accept that the trigger has come. Don't try to fight it, because it's coming for a reason. And it's your body's way of telling you that you haven't dealt with that situation yet, and you've got to address it, or it'll keep coming back. And P stands for practice gratitude. So thank the trigger for coming. Again, it's the body's way of telling you that you haven't dealt with that situation yet, and you'll continue to react to it until you redirect your response to it. Tell yourself the truth about it, because most of those stories are lies, and then you let it go. And then when the trigger comes in future, you either A, see it coming. Hopefully most of the time you see it coming, but even if you don't see it coming, it doesn't hit you the same way, because you've dealt with it and you've let it go. Right. And
What about when people are around others that try to trigger them? And I'm just saying, and you can't always just remove a family member. So there's that. So when you're around someone and you finally have recognized after years of experience, oh, this person is gaslighting or trying to trigger me.
Mm-hmm.
What is your advice around that?
So I have so many personal stories about that. I had one where my husband and I had a difference of opinion around the gym. So we both went to the gym in the morning, and the kids were younger, and so they're still asleep. And we do our workout, and he always left 10 or 15 minutes before me. And I ran into a friend at the end. And so I just stood and talked to her for a few minutes. It never occurred to me to call him and say I was running late. I mean, it was like 6 a.m. or something. And so on my ride home, he called and he was all upset and sort of like, where are you? What are you doing? I need to be into work early today. And I just got so upset with myself. Like, I can't believe I made him late. The kids were all upset, because we were sort of fighting, and, I can never do anything right. And that story, I can never do anything right, played over and over and over again until about 2 o'clock that afternoon when I went on a walk going like, this isn't right. This is not right. Like, I didn't really do anything wrong. I mean, sure, I didn't call home, but in fairness, he didn't tell me he needed to leave early that day. So we're both kind of wrong, right? But then I was like, but I'm sure there's something good that I did today. So, yes, maybe I did something wrong, but that doesn't mean that everything I did was wrong. And I started looking at the day differently. Like, I did all these other things right. And what had ruined my day, and I know it's kind of a basic example, but it had turned into, I do a lot of things right. And I'm pretty awesome. And I'm a great wife and a great mom. And I made a mistake. Oh, well. And I just moved on with my day and I was fine. And that's like the SNAP method in action, saying like, look at the facts. The facts are there were 90 things today that you did right. You're going to focus on the one that you did wrong.
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, what about when you trigger somebody else? You don't mean to, but like they're triggered and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm triggering them."
Yeah, well, again, because he's the one I spend so much time with. Sometimes it happens with clients, but I spend the most time with him. I'll pick on him. I hope he doesn't listen to this one. But there are times where he doesn't want to hear it, but he'll do it to himself in the car and bring himself back down. But I even had a situation a couple of weeks ago where I was triggered and he pulled out my words and like threw them right back at me. He's like, we're doing the SNAP method. And I'm like, I don't want to do it right now. But I
Oh,
did.
that
And he
sounds
was
like my
right.
husband.
He was right. I wanted to run for the whoopie pie and I didn't. He was right and he calmed me back down and I had a great night after that. But um, you have to notice your own manipulative ways. Um, and it's humbling, but he's absolutely right. It was the right thing to do.
So I also think it's very important to know who triggers you, what triggers you, and like sometimes it would be important not to take the bait when it's thrown out, to recognize the bait, to recognize there are people that do try to trigger you because it gives them power and control. So when we are triggered and we let that take over our emotions and we get angry and we say things maybe we don't really mean, we're losing our power and control. So, what's
Yep.
some advice surrounding that?
Well, there's two things that I would say. Number one, when you are triggered, it's either something that I see in you that I don't like about myself, or something I see in you that I've also done. So, there's this woman that I work with sometimes, and there is something that grinds my gears about her. And I
Grind your
haven't,
gears.
Grinds my gears. Like, oh,
I am stealing that. I am stealing that phrase. Grinds my gears. That is perfect way to put it.
well, and I don't know what it is. And I do need to make time to journal on it, but I don't see her that often that I'm constantly triggered and it hasn't turned me to food. But I do want to figure out what it is. And it's one of those two things. It just is. It's 99% of the time it has nothing to do with you, and that's important to know. You're just kind of applying meaning to something that doesn't require the meaning. When I was 10 years old, my cousin called me fat. And that was a story that haunted me for 34 years, and I wasn't fat. I made that phrase mean something, and I didn't have to. I could have just said, like, look at the facts. It was what, 5'7" and probably 80 something pounds, right? Like there was no fat on me. But I applied meaning to that and I destroyed my own body image for 34 years. I'd never worn a bikini until I was 44.
Oh, wow. Celebrate good times, though. You did it.
Yeah. I was like, yes. Well, and I had a little ceremony too for that little 10-year-old girl because she deserved that freedom. I felt like, I kind of owed it to my younger self to just like set her free and apologize at the very least
Yeah.
for what I did to her.
And I really loved how you said earlier how eye-opening journaling is. And I have to say about this big talk experience, and I'm in the speaker salon with 11 other speakers, so there's 12 of us. It has been an eye-opening experience in journaling on steroids because you get up, like I know I did every week, and I feel like I'm spilling out word vomit. No, I'm just like
Yeah.
regurgitating the innermost parts of my being and talking about what I think I want to talk about. And then pretty soon each dot connects and you have a talk and it's bigger than you thought it was and you edit it. And then you realize, wow, all along it was all about value. It was all about feeling worthy. It was all
Mhm.
about feeling enough. And that's what all these achievements were about. And when did that start? At 8. So you look, you connect the dots, you see how it relates to others. But, like, may I just say, the biggest thing I noticed, I drew the connection after writing all this out, talking all this out, was that in my journal, the word value came up 88 times. And well, it's no wonder that that's what my speech is all about. And it was so eye opening to just do that journaling and so healing.
Mhm.
It's so, it made me understand myself in a whole new way.
Yeah, you end up with a very compassionate lens that gets applied to whatever you've written. I can remember a couple of situations where I started out so full of anger, like that Linda, and just on and on and on and on. And then I found myself being like, well, like she wasn't always that bad. And I started kind of like backing off a little because the truth comes in. And yes, maybe, you and I had a good relationship at one point that declined. That doesn't mean you're a terrible person. That means like our ways have parted, and that's okay too. And it was really eye-opening to me to be like one of the situations was about one of my brothers, and I remember being like, but he was my best friend, and I idolized him. He had a lot of good about him. And so it made me see that that doesn't mean he's a bad human. He's just maybe not for me.
Yeah, not everybody's a bad person just
No.
because you might not want them in your life. It
Yeah.
might be just the way they affect you or the way you affect them. Or maybe it's just for that time,
Mm-hmm.
because people can evolve and people can change. Um, I love like that you give advice to clients who struggle with not feeling good enough or lacking self-love, especially since my message next week's going to be a lot about that. at the big talk. Uh, so for anyone out there right now that maybe they want to go for things, they want to do exciting things, but they don't feel enough, or maybe they are going for them, but each time, like I had to reestablish my value every time I went for something big. It was really always boiled down to my self-worth and my value. What kind of advice do you get people who struggle with this not enoughness and lacking this self-esteem, self-love?
That's a great question. So you have that voice inside you that you think is fear. That's like, oh, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to. I'm too afraid. That I believe is your body's way of like I believe you're misinterpreting that signal as fear when it's actually excitement. I
Oh,
really
yeah, yeah, yeah.
excitement. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you're like backtrack to when you decided to start speaking on stages. I'm sure there was a part of you that was like, who's going to want to listen to Linda? Or,
Actually,
I'm
I
gonna
was thinking about calling my podcast that.
but maybe it was all of the self-doubt comes funneling in, but that's just the ego. So in high school you learned about the id, the ego, and the superego. The ego is there to keep you safe, and sometimes it goes too far. It doesn't know boundaries, and sometimes it repeats these stories like, remember, you're not good enough, so you shouldn't do that because you're not good enough. um, you have to reprogram the ego, just like we walked through in the SNAP method. You have to tell the ego, that's not true. I am good enough and I do want to do those things. And over time, it
Mm-hmm.
will change the narrative so that you don't think, you build confidence and you build more trust in yourself. You'll stop thinking those things, and you'll jump on stages in front of 1,000 people like it's nothing, whereas you wouldn't have done it in front of 3 people your first time. Um, but the ego is so powerful, and it's meant to protect you, so you don't touch the red hot burner on the stove. That's good. That's when the ego is doing its job. Or you're in a dark place and you see a skunk walking by, right? The ego's like, skunks bad, run the other way. But sometimes it goes too far, and that's when it serves up stories that you have programmed it to say. And now I think the most empowering thing about this whole process is you programmed it to say that, which means you can reprogram it to say something else.
Oh yeah, 100%. And also sometimes it's just a need and a change of perspective to really think about, like I did, why get all nervous when I'm getting up on a stage? It's really just a step above where I was sitting.
Yep.
It's like, why is this I mean, there's a lot to that. Of course, you are opening yourself up, you're putting yourself up, you're stating your opinion in front of others. And you might feel like a target, when you open yourself up. But you could also think of it differently. This is a platform. I have a message to deliver. I need a platform so people can hear my message, and think about all the people you're going to help, and get your ego out of the way, because when you're speaking, it's really not about you.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Yeah.
can do that, then you think of yourself a lot less, and that's a big roadblock out of the way.
Let me tell you, if you can do a fitness competition in a bikini in front of lots of other bikini clad individuals and lots of judges, I think you can do just about anything. And then the other thing I'll say is that you you are your expert. You are the expert on your talk. So nobody sitting in the audience has any idea what you're about to say,
Mm-mm.
but they know that there's some goodness in there, and that's what they're waiting to hear. And they'll look for those 2 or 3 nuggets,
Yeah,
and they'll get them. And
right.
that's the thing that matters. Do they retain those nuggets?
Wow. And I finally got through my talk. I did it yesterday and today. And for today, for sure, I did not get choked up. Yesterday, just a little at the end,
Yeah.
which is huge because before I was a mess. I was a mess. Because it was so much deep work, I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's been a process. And I think doing the work, like when you don't feel good enough, or if you feel like you don't love yourself enough, uh, finding out, well, where did that all begin is a starter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that can come out too in journaling. But I always tell my clients, self-love is the foundation of any transformation. So if you don't have it, that's the first thing we work on to get you to that next level. And it starts with saying three very basic things about yourself. And I sometimes use, the example of like, I like my eyebrows, because maybe that's the only thing you can come up with physically that you love about yourself. So start there. Or my glasses, or I don't know, anything. The way I look at a tank top, or I don't care, but find three physical things that you can say about yourself. Do it in the mirror and do it day after day. And you'll see, then you'll start to, I don't know, say something nice about your smile and something like a little bit deeper. And before you know it, you start to see yourself differently and you'll treat yourself differently. That's the same time when people move away from the number on the scale to how they feel. And it's just a wild
Yeah.
transformation to
What
experience.
that kind of goes along with part of my message of we need to give ourselves the things that we wish we would have received. If you're always wishing this person would acknowledge you, or that person would pay attention to you, or your mother would recognize you, or all of these things, I think recognize that you could actually give those things to yourself and start doing it. That is very empowering. The other is not empowering because you have no control over whether those individuals are going to give you the approval you were looking for, the validation you were seeking, the attention you wanted, all of these things. But you have control over what you give yourself.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't think social media helps us in that regard at all, right? You're like, oh, look, I got a new follower, and that's somehow validating. And I understand the initial meaning behind it, right? But it's come to a point where people, I mean, I hear my kids talk about it all the time. Can you believe so and so has X number of followers and they're so lucky. I'm like, that is not
The thing
validation.
is it could be all
Real.
wiped away in one day, so it really means nothing.
It's nothing.
I mean, that's the reality of it. If you
Yeah.
say one thing that the Facebook police don't like, it could just be wiped out. And so we really need to get back to basics of what really matters. Like what you said, you did a whole thing of making your life smaller, which probably actually made your life bigger because I
Ever.
think the pandemic should have been a wake up call for most of us. I know it made me realize, oh, I really am spoiled. I really like, the fruit. I like to go to the tanning, get sprayed. I want my highlights. I want my nails. Um, and realize you really don't have to have those things. You like those things. You want
Yes.
those things, but those are not necessarily what the things that you need. And also, I think recognizing how important connection is, like during that time, being, on a lockdown or whatever, people were really hungry for connection. And I think the social media makes people more disconnected.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I mean, I'll say the only socialization my kids got was through Xbox Live, which I hated. They don't really play video games much, but it was their way of actually talking live to their friends. FaceTime was so
Right, because
old.
they're playing a game together.
Yeah, but you could hear them talking. They were actually conversing. But I agree with you. I think we are hardwired for connection. I mean, it's no surprise that the Surgeon General talks about loneliness being the latest healthcare epidemic.
Mm,
There's a reason for that,
it's worse
right?
than smoking.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
that's, the thing that I want to impress on people, like look for ways to engage, look for things that interest you. You can find commonalities with other people. There's always somebody out there. But, you know, as small as I made my world, it was very intentional. And it was with people that had similar interests. And we call each other the tribe, and they're my ride or die. They're great, and I can call them no matter what time, ask them anything, and they'll be there for me. And that during that time of my life, they were the ones that picked up the phone, and so those are the ones that matter.
Well, I think like loneliness, you could be in a relationship and be lonely. So loneliness is not really dependent on uh being in a relation, like it doesn't instantly, because you got married, doesn't instantly make you less lonely. It's when you're creating connection with people that you love that you feel less lonely, or the best connection, which is with yourself and having self acceptance. I think when you love who you are, others are going to love you too. I think it stems from you loving yourself first. Um, I really know that might sound a little cliche or even a little corny, but I truly believe that you've got to give yourself the love you want to receive, and that's where it all starts. What do you
Yep.
think the importance of self-care is for people that are feeling stuck, overwhelmed, um, unable to achieve their goals?
I think it's super important. I think it feels selfish, but it's actually selfless. So, you've heard the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. I think people think, especially moms, we all do this. And I'm not saying people that don't have children don't experience this, but as a mom, I can speak for moms that we are there constantly serving others, taking care of our kids and the pets and our husband and our work and all these other things. And you realize you're completely depleted for yourself. And so what I advocate is, that you take care of yourself first. You put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. Um, because what you want to do is give the best version of yourself to those people that you love. And it seems like we lose sight of that after we, start families and whatnot. And it's perfectly natural, but it's not healthy because you're actually giving the worst version of yourself, the very end of
And
yourself
then
to
you don't even like that version. So if you don't like who you are, how is that worth it, right?
Yeah, I can remember those nights where I would be like, what could I possibly microwave to call this dinner and be done with it? Like I am just done. Um, and now it's not that way. I mean, you make sacrifices and you prioritize a little bit differently, but we operate together as a family at a much higher level, a much higher frequency, and level of positivity than we ever have before. And as much as I get sad about the fact that I drive that, I wish it wasn't dependent on me, but it is. And when mom is not feeling right, it feels like the whole kingdom comes crashing down. So I work really hard on making sure, to your point, I get my nails done every couple of weeks.
I'm due
You
for
know,
those.
oh, I had a couple of chips the other day. It's so upsetting. But I do these things. I do monthly massages to keep my body in check, to make sure that as I age, that I'm not breaking down
Mm-hmm.
prematurely.
Yep.
Um, I make sure I always get enough sleep. I mean, I am first to bed and I don't even care what I'm missing out on because I know how important sleep is to
Right.
restore the day.
Right.
I always get my workouts in because that is important for my mental health. So no matter what you define self love to be and self care, you have to make that just as important as the oxygen you breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You allow yourself to breathe. Most of the time it's involuntary, but you have to look at self-care the same way. That is the thing that happens first among everything else that you've got to do. And then those things just naturally fall into place. You make time for everything.
What in your experience are common misconceptions that people have about their nutrition, their mindset, and personal training?
Their nutrition, oh boy. Okay, so I have definitely had well, I eat really healthy. I had an entire head of cauliflower today.
They had what?
An entire head of cauliflower.
And that's
Okay.
it? Okay.
Well, that's a lot of carbs. Where's the protein? No, I didn't have any. I ate healthy. I'm like, okay, let's teach you what a carb is, right? And so there's a lot of misconceptions around, well, I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Well, those are great and really important, but they're also carbs. And so we have to place limitations on them. Let's look at your protein intake. Let's understand the role of carbs, fats, and proteins. They're each important in your body. Why? Right? So, carbs, greatest source of ATP, which is the thing that transfers energy around the body. That's why you have carbs before your workout, so you get that boost. Fat is the transportation vehicle for protein. So it's like the little train inside that brings protein to where it needs to go. It's also an alternative source of ATP. It's not as efficient, but it also satiates you. So it helps you get from meal to meal without being hungry. So you don't have those dips in insulin. Protein is the thing that burns fat. So if you want to lose weight, you better get close to protein. It is the thing that will help you lose the weight. It burns
I'm
fat.
ready to go eat some egg white wraps and eggs right now.
Give me a chicken leg.
Or maybe a bison burger. We grilled out
Bison burger.
yesterday.
Um, or I have loads of vegan options for people, right? There's
Yeah.
all kinds of sources, lots of plant-based sources too. And then, but it also repairs muscles. So you were talking about working out earlier. What is the thing that's going to repair the micro tears that you just made by working out? And so that helps to build muscle, right? So I think people don't understand the role of carbs, fats, and proteins in their world. When it comes to mindset, I think they think it's somebody else's problem and that they don't have the tools within themselves to make those adjustments. And they do. They very much do. And that's my job to guide them there. And when it comes to fitness and personal training, I can't tell you how many people think about fitness as a weight loss tool. You can lose weight working out to some extent, but it's really for your mental health. It's to tax your cardiovascular system. It's
Yeah.
it's
I
to
really think it's
the lungs.
mental, emotional.
Yep, it's to stretch the lungs, work the
Yeah.
heart. You're creating rich red blood cells that shoot to the brain that produce serotonin, which is the feel-good hormone. So it's for
Mhm.
your mental
Mhm.
health.
It's nature's best antidepressant.
It is. And that's so don't tell me you need to lose 15 pounds and then, go to the gym and kill yourself 6 days a week. That's not the answer, right? If yoga is your thing, go do yoga. Or if you want to swim, go swim. Or if you want to do nothing but get your nutrition in check,
Or
right?
go to France and walk everywhere and don't
Yes.
sit for maybe a few minutes. And then
Yeah.
you can be like the French. I mean, have wine, have bread, have some cheese, have some chocolate mousse, and not gain any weight. It's crazy.
Exactly.
I worked out twice while I was gone. And that is unheard of in my life. I never do that. Oh my gosh. I was putting my husband, I was baking him his favorite pies on Memorial Day, and pie plate came out and wham right in the head. I'm just looking
Oh
here. I
no.
can kind of see where it hit me. I really got into my baking yesterday.
Well, I hope you're okay. I can't see it, but I
Oh,
hope
you
you're okay.
can't. I was like, I can see the ding right now.
That's just
That
because
was a powerful baking episode. I was like, oh my gosh, I almost knocked myself out trying to make these pies for him.
you're a good wife.
Hey, he doesn't eat bad or have stuff like that very often. So I was just like, oh, I'll make him his favorite. And every once in a while you got to have a little bit of fun in life. And I think when we think that we have to be so stringent, so strict, we're really missing health. Like, health is not about just being like a Nazi about everything.
Not at all. Eat the cookies, just do them out of joy. Don't do them out of like, personal torture and, disgust for something that's going on in your life. Don't run to them and eat the entire package. Eat the cookies because you're having a good time at your friend's house and you want a cookie.
The
That's my
politically
message.
the politically correct person in me wants to say no offense to you Nazis out there. Isn't that awful? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But what were you saying about the cookie?
Oh, I just said eat the cookie. Just do it out of joy. Don't do it out of self-torture and, self-hatred for something that was going on in your life, right? Don't do it because you were triggered and you're angry. Do it because you're at a friend's house and you guys are having a good time and you want a cookie.
I mean,
That's
I
what you have to do.
think if like you have a treat now and then, it's not going to kill you.
Not
It's
at all.
it's really about it being kind of like a treat. I mean, like, a cookie once in a while, as long as like 80% of the time you're taking care of yourself and you're eating healthy. I think where we go wrong is when we never have the cookie.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then you'll eat the entire package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the box. No.
And your neighbor's treat. And
Yeah. I mean, I really, it was eye-opening to go on this trip and have a blast and drink prosecco, have some bread. I mean, me, like, have some bread. I think I had a warm cookie, not the whole thing, but I did have part of a warm cookie on the plane. Um, and like I had some chocolate mousse, not a lot, but I'm there again. I'm saying I allowed myself to have some things when we were in France. Now, in the past, that would not have been.
good for you. That's exactly what you should have done.
Yeah, and it was so fun. Like, I will be smiling all year about that trip. I think. I mean, and that's the other thing. You don't realize what's out there and what's possible for you if you always stay home, do the same things, don't get out of your comfort zone, uh, live in fear, you know, people lived in fear during the pandemic and you might be afraid to travel. Um, Man, the other aspect is do you want to not ever live your life?
It is so it's life is so much shorter than people really understand and give themselves credit for. You're absolutely right. We have to get out. We have to have experiences. Ask yourself, is that really fear or is it excitement? And I would say 9 times out of 10, it's excitement, and you need to run towards that thing, not the other direction.
Yeah. This has been so good today. I really enjoyed having you on. What is one thing that you can say to help people bring more daily joy to themselves?
Oh, I love that. So I would say from a fitness perspective, do something that brings you joy. If that's walking, swimming, yoga, running, Peloton, you name it, right? Do the thing that brings you joy. Don't do it for weight loss. As it relates to nutrition, just start tracking the things that you're eating and understand what the foods are that you're eating. Are they carbs, fats, or proteins? You'll be surprised as to what you're consuming. And once you have that data, you can then make decisions. Not tracking means you're hiding from the real issue. And I would say, mindset wise, um, just start journaling. Even if you feel like you don't have anything to say. I was talking to a woman earlier today who's like, sometimes I don't write because I don't like my tone. I don't care about your tone. Write it down anyway, right? Just get it out. You can judge it later. Don't
I mean, that's
analyze,
the
just figure it out.
thing. That's the thing. We discount our ideas.
Mhm.
Don't discount your ideas. Don't discount what's inside of you. Like when I was, like doing that somewhat, but after I wrote it all out, and then now that I see it all together, I'm like, wow, that is powerful. But
Yeah.
like you think you're too close to it. And so a lot of times, instead of recognizing that our story is powerful, we discount it.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. So, just start writing. I don't care if you ever refer back to it, but get it on paper. And you'll start to identify trends and think about the things that you can change the definition of.
So good. Where can everybody reach you on social media and get the SNAP method?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that. So Instagram is the best way. So I'm at the Coleen Greco, which is the THE. Coleen is Coleen, and Greco is Greco. So at the Coleen Greco. My website is ColleenGreco.com. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am not a TikToker and I have never believed in Twitter. So you
You
won't
have
find me
never believed in what?
in Twitter.
I do go on Twitter now since Elon bought it, but I've never been a Twitterer very much until now. And I have never been on TikTok.
Yeah.
Uh that I have never done. So, one more question before we close. What can you say to help moms, women prioritize their health and wellness?
Yeah. So we all use the excuse that we have no time, because we give our time to our kids and our family. But I would argue that if you have a cutoff time at night where you absolutely will go to bed. I had this client, Deanna, a long time ago who I used to say 10 o'clock, that is your cutoff time. I don't care if you're done with your day. You have to stop at some point. And then you have to get up at whatever time to get your workout in. So make those requirements for your day, just as you make the other things that you do a requirement.
It's
You
like guidelines or deal breakers in a way, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't, I have
Requirements
a
and
friend that,
prerequisites.
yeah, I have a friend who always says, I don't have time to eat breakfast. Well, I mean, it takes me like 3 minutes to make my eggs. So I'm pretty sure we can find 3 minutes. Get up 3 minutes earlier, whatever you need to do. Will it,
You know what she should say is it's not a priority for me.
that's the truth, right? So there's the lie
Yeah,
and then the truth. But I also
right.
say, like, it might hurt for the first couple of weeks because your routine is being disrupted, but you will soon feel so much better when you start to clean up these things that have been unknowingly dragging you down. And again, if you want to give the best of yourself to your children, you have to put yourself first. There's no way that you can be all things to all people. We all think we're super mom. We're all pretty close, but you have to prioritize your own self-care first and then give, however much of yourself to your children.
And I really love what Coach Todd Durkin said on his podcast recently. Uh, it's got to really be up there on the meter for you to say yes to it. Like I said yes to these things that were really up on the meter. I wondered, like, at first I was like, oh, I can't do that. I can't leave my business. But then I started rephrasing that, like, how can I do this? And now I'm almost done. Like I only have this Wednesday and next Wednesday. I've completed what I didn't think I could do. But what I also recognized during this time is I said yes to those things and I only had so much time for other things. And it definitely stretched me. I definitely did it. I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
But it keeps me in that line of only saying yes to those things that's like a heck yeah, heck yes, I'm,
Mhm.
instead of a hell no. Like if it's something your whole being is saying yes to, I think you should go for it. But don't get caught up in the muck saying yes to everything, because there's only so much of you to go around. So you really want to focus that on the things that you actually really want to do, because you find, oh, wow, I literally spent every minute of the day until it's already next Wednesday. And, you start realizing you have to prioritize what you're actually doing, how much time you actually have to do it.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and I one day with all of my data, my hope is to, develop some sort of a best practice for somebody, right? Like you give X percentage of your day to work. So you deserve X percent for yourself and X percent to kids. And, I would love to get that scientific about it. I'm not sure it'll ever happen, but yeah, you have to decide what's truly important to you and then stick with it. And honestly, I wish everybody could feel as great as I feel every day. And it's a choice to be happy. Um, I could choose to feel stuck too, and it's just not a life I'm willing to live anymore.
And I actually think Monaco is the city I'm meant to live in. And I could spend a lifetime vacationing in France and Italy. I could do it. I know I could.
I
It
love it.
was so amazing. And I think that's why you say yes to some of those things, because it makes your whole life better.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you went.
So, yes, I mean, it was amazing. My husband was like, "Oh, we have to plan more trips like this." And then he was like, "When are we going out dancing again?" So I'm like, "Oh, I've got to strike while the iron's hot. I need to find a dance place around here." While he's still in the mood.
Yep.
This was so great today. We will keep in touch, and I really enjoyed all of your take on joy. I hope everyone else has really soaked up like a sponge what she was laying down today. And let us know what you thought. Follow Sisterhood of Sweat on Instagram. And as always, keep on keeping on. Bye, everyone.